Okay, now we're on the My Activity screen, which is essentially a view of a day or any period we choose up here, which shows on a timeline the imports, exports, prices we paid, essentially a bit of a view of the whole day. So what I've got here, I've just chosen a fairly interesting day, which is the 15th of December. And what we have in the kind of that light orange color is our grid imports, and down on the green we have our grid exports. Just a reminder, I suppose, that all of our imports exports shown at this level are net, so it's not necessarily all of production, but it's anything that's not behind the meter. So those net imports and exports. So we can see here that around 12 p.m. This facility is importing quite a lot. It does look like they're charging a battery, and then there's some significant discharge well into the evening, which sort of leaves no doubt that it's actually a battery charge discharge in this scenario. Another bit of charge going on here. Now, as I scroll through the graph, you can see the time period changing up here. So 12:25, 12:30. These are the discrete 5-minute time periods of the wholesale market. It's the sort of the heartbeat on which the price changes. And every time I move to an extra interval, the legend down the bottom changes to show all the things that are happening at this point in time. So what I can do is, if I move around, it'll move. If I click on any particular interval, I can then move the mouse and it'll lock that into position. And if I click again, I can then unlock it. So for example, if I choose this interval here, I can see that we have a spot cost. This is a wholesale energy cost from AEMO. We're pulling in 2.88 kilowatt hours, and it's a price of 22 cents per kilowatt hour. With any grid energy, there's a carbon component to the energy mix in the grid. So we've calculated that as 22 kilograms of carbon dioxide per hour. But keep in mind that this is only a 5-minute period, so these prices will not stay around necessarily for more than that 5-minute period. And the same thing with the estimates. This is all based off the import, and as we can see, that the import only lasts about 15 minutes, and then we go into an export mode. We can also see that we're getting charged from Energex as a Queensland customer, and the charge is 0.5 cent per kilowatt hour to pull that energy in off the grid for that same period. We have a fixed fee from Energex, which is 70 cents per day. This is very much linked to what tariff the customer is on. So different tariffs have different daily charges and different volumetric charges. Some have demand charges, some are only time of use, some are flat, some are time of use. Some are a two-way, in which they'll reward exports and sometimes penalise exports, as well as charging for imports. So we also have here a meter capital charge. So Energex are levying this meter charge of 13 cents a day on the capital charge of the meter. And all these charges, we pass them through, so we'll get an invoice from Energex for the network charges, for the meter capital charges, and we pass these charges through. We have a certificate charge here at a current rate of 1.16 cents per kilowatt hour on this 2.88 kilowatt hours. So that will be our large scale certificates and our small scale certificates that we have to buy for customers using electricity from the grid as part of the renewable energy target legislation. And then we have a daily subscription fee to Locavolts, which is $1 a day plus GST. So this is on the import side of things. And then we go a few minutes later, we're now at 450. And so now we're exporting. So you see the price mix changes quite a lot. we now have spot revenue. So this is now money coming in, 25 cents per kilowatt hour is coming in from the market. And we're not paying anything to Energex at the moment because there's no consumption happening. Meter capital charge is still applicable, and the local volts fee is still there.
So 25 cents per kilowatt hour is a pretty good price. Can you tell us a bit about this system and how they've achieved that? So what are we looking at? We've got a battery, obviously.
Yeah. So it seems one thing we can actually do up here on the selector is we can overlay certain lines. So, for example, if we choose this by default peer-to-peer trades are overlaid, but this customer doesn't appear to be doing any peer-to-peer trades on this day, only spot trading. So if we choose the cost revenue line, we can see this dark line is then essentially your imports times the cost of imports at a per kilowatt hour rate, and the exports times the cost. So you can see here, this customer is no doubt using our API and operating the battery in accordance with prices, because their imports and exports are very much following the price. So essentially, we can see that it's been exported at around the same price as the import. There doesn't seem to be a massive arbitrage going on this particular day, but it just does seem to be some sort of control decision being made, where they're basically when price is going negative. So it's basically because that's a revenue, it's gone down to minus 26 and up to positive 22. So there's almost a 50 cent per kilowatt hour spread happening here, basically, that the customers getting into. So in terms of how this happens is obviously Local Volts is passing through the wholesale market costs. This is a sign of afternoon volatility, which is quite common, where the price will sometimes go very high, but also sometimes even just go high and then negative and then high and sort of oscillate back and forwards. That sometimes does happen. And if you're watching the price, in this case, no doubt through the API, you can capitalize on that by making control decisions.
Is this situation likely to have happened because the battery actually exported all its energy and needed to recharge?
It does seem to be a bit of recharging going on. We obviously can't see the state of charge. Possible that it was low and they've recharged, or possible that they're potentially anticipating that there'd be higher more strongly negative prices in the evening and there'd be more available. It could be charging up for the next day. Yeah.
And how could we use this screen to have a look at a longer time period and see how we're performing?
Well, just change the dates on the top. So we could look at, for example, that week, and just get a view of the type of behaviour going on. And after that, we can just have a look at today's one. So we can see here that it's kind of a similar pattern happening each day. There's basically some very large and very short-term exports and some little bursts of imports there too.
And presumably this facility is running on battery the rest of the time, where we're seeing a flat line.
Yeah, they're pretty easy to tell. Like if we just have a look at the current days graph, there's pretty much a giveaway when you see nothing happening for a while and then 25 kilowatts of import happening. It's a giveaway that it's a battery. Sometimes very big charging can be electric vehicles, but then you would see other, if there wasn't a household battery, you'd see other sort of imports during the day. But yeah, so this is an example where it looks like they've charged middle of the day, prices are negative in the spot. So basically not quite getting paid to charge with the in this case they are just slightly outweighing the fairly low Energex charges in some places in that case. So they're actually getting paid to charge here, and then looks like running the rest of the day off the battery. Now, one thing to remember here, this is today. So this is actually an estimate of what today will look like. It won't be confirmed until the data comes in early in the morning from the previous day. So the owner of this property can operate that battery in a completely different way if they choose to, and that'll be confirmed next day. So anything we go back on, if we look at yesterday, for example, it will be the actual data. And when I say actual, I mean the actual usage data as opposed to the actual price data. So in today's version, we will get the actual price data as we enter each interval. We'll get similar prices. So you'll see here that estimate we're basing today off has come from historical behaviour that is generally looks a lot like that, and so it's kind of learning and forecasting based off previous behaviour.
So I guess as a battery owner, this is probably the best screen to look at to sort of analyse the behaviour if we've got some sort of control system set up.
It's a very handy screen to have a look at. It's one of my go-to screens. Someone asked me what's going on. This can tell you a lot about the way a property, what we call a facility on our system, how it's set up. So it's pretty easy to see if it's a solar-only customer, if it's someone with a battery. Do they have a short spiky load, a very long flat load? So, for example, refrigeration is a very flat 24/7 load, whereas charging, discharging, and machinery shops are a very spiky load. Yeah, it tells you a lot. It also, and if it is something like a battery where you see they've got the potential to control, not just a self-consuming battery charged up with solar, you can also pretty much see whether it's being operated in terms of prices or not. So if it wasn't following prices, you would see some of these spikes going in the opposite direction to some of the usage. So basically losing money when charging and discharging.
So at the moment, I guess there's a lot of solar panel owners out there who are considering buying batteries. This looks like a good screen where they could sort of see where they're not, or their solar's not performing optimally or not exporting at optimal times, and perhaps see the potential benefit of a battery.
Okay, here's a great example of a solar-only customer. This one's from September. So spring day, probably plenty of sun because we've got a nice even profile. There's probably not a lot of behind the meter consumption going on, which is very much shaping this profile. We've got a couple of little spikes in usage here, but you can see this is mainly the controlled load. So what that will be is the distributor seeing that energy prices are low and it's a good time to turn on some water heating. And there's also some more of that going on here. So these little big spikes are generally controlled load spikes. So we can see a whole bunch of solar was produced and exported into the grid, and then we have this evening usage where we would generally expect prices to be a fair bit higher. So what's happened in this case, we can turn on the peer-to-peer overview, which will shade the trades, and we can see that quite a lot of this solar export has been sold peer-to-peer. This is the dark green. Not all of it, but up to 50% in some parts. So if we just click on an area of that, what we can see is there's 182 watt hours within, keep in mind we're just talking about a 5-minute period here. So that's gone out into the market, and at the moment the market's trading at 2.5 cents negative. So that's essentially a cost to export at the moment. But overlaying that is this peer-to-peer component. And so there's about the same amount of energy, slightly more if you add these two together, going to these peer-to-peer customers. And I'll just make the point, this is our simulation system, which is like a sandpit environment. So everyone in this environment is called Bob. So in the real local vault system, you'll see the name of the person you're trading with. And in this case, the trade has gone in at 8 cents per kilowatt offer, per kilowatt hour, and it's been matched. So this 200 watt hours is earning 8 cents, while the market component is actually losing 2. So we can overlay that with a cost revenue line, and we can see that there are a couple of little spots where the solar export is essentially costing a small amount, but it's predominantly in the black, so it's actually earning on a net basis.
So for a solar only facility, it looks like the peer-to-peer market becomes pretty important, especially when prices go negative.
Yeah, it's a great way of avoiding as much as possible exporting into negative prices. It's too complex to explain here, but the way the trades work, you probably won't totally avoid any spot export, but generally you can get a large proportion of it sold peer to peer, and that will mean essentially rather than paying to export, you can be still earning on the peer to peer market. And even when prices are not negative, you can potentially be earning more than the market. And even if you don't, keeping in mind that when you put these trades in, no one actually knows what the price is going to be. You can lock in the price you're happy with. So if you're, for example, on a spring day, 8 cents is you think is a good return for solar. If for a few intervals you might have got a bit more, you didn't know that at the time you did the trade, it might have been negative, it might have been a lot less, but you're basically locking in a price you're happy to forward sell at in the peer-to-peer market. Now you can see over here on the flip side, in the evening, we've got a peer-to-peer purchase. Some of that has filled. This little dark orange part has been where that's been matched, and no doubt that will be a battery-based seller because they're exporting at nearly 7 p.m. And you can see here that's been purchased peer-to-peer. Would have been as a hedge to probably a hot day where prices were forecast to be really high in the evening. And so that peer-to-peer trade is again been to lock in a price that you'd be happy to pay. And that's fill for part of it. And again, if we look at the cost revenue, once we put the actual costs in there, you can see that, definitely that was the more expensive part of the day. And so there's been some extra costs in there.
So the peer-to-peer market seems to act as quite a good protection against extreme prices at both ends.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like using the grid as your battery, where you can basically not just be totally exposed to the wholesale market, but you can exhibit a degree of control by buying and selling. This is actually my site, and what I was doing at this time is essentially using someone else's battery to pull some energy or some coverage for the energy I was pulling in for the evening.